meeting with the Guangguan Traders Association, Mapuche. Yeah. Then let's go to another story here. I have this one. 2023, IPAC wants ICPC to ensure corrupt candidates are not elected. As part of its consultation with critical stakeholders for the success of the 2023 general elections, the Interparty Advisory Council led by Yabagi Yusuf Sani has met with the chairman of the Independent Corrupt Practices and Other Related Offences Commission, Professor Bolaji Owasanwoye San, at the Anti-Graft Agency's headquarters, Abuja. Sani said IPAC sought the cooperation of the ICPC towards achieving a credible, transparent, peaceful, and all-inclusive general election in 2023 and ensure that people with questionable characters were not elected into office. The IPAC boss decried massive vote buying that characterized recent elections and urged the Anti-Graft Agency to arrest and prosecute offenders to serve as deterrent to others who might contemplate such heinous crime against the nation. According to him, corruption has eaten deep into the fabric of the nation and urged the agency to be proactive in its investigation and prosecution of corrupt politicians, starting from the recruitment of leaders through political parties, primaries, which will make its role easier when new governments emerge. That is from the IPAC chairman. Then let's have this story. Samfara trains 100 health personnel on ethics. The Samfara state government has organized induction training for over 100 newly recruited health personnel of the Yariman Bakura Specialist Hospital in Gusau. The new staff members were trained on basic civil service ethics and guidelines and their obligations in the hospital as they relate to patients. Flagging off the training in Gusau, the State Commissioner for Health, represented by the Permanent Secretary Aliu Mohammed Makio, charged the new personnel to be diligent in their duties. Yeah. Let's see this story on Niger. Heavy rains, 7 persons killed, several others displaced in Niger communities. The Niger state government has raised the alarm over the impact of floodings across the state, as 7 persons have so far been killed with several houses, farmlands, bridges, and linked roads washed away in some local government areas. The Director General of Niger State Emergency Management Agency, Malam Ahmed Ibrahim Enga, stated this in a statement in Mina, the state capital. Enga stated that flood waters have rendered many people homeless and has affected socio-economic activities in the affected communities. He said among the affected local government areas of the state includes Lavon, Magama, Ravik, Kotagora, Gako, Ashegu, and Wushishi, respectively. Yeah. Another story here. NERC affirms new board for BEDC, says it has power to regulate distribution companies. The Nigeria Electricity Regulatory Commission has affirmed that the new board of directors and management of the Benin Electricity Distribution Company, headed by Henry Ajagbawa, stands. The NERC in the statement reiterated that the BEDC is a distribution licensee of NERC and by virtue of powers vested in the Commission by the Electric Power Sector Reform Act, regulatory instruments issued pursuant to EPSRA and terms the conditions of the license issued to BEDC. NERC is the primary authority that is vested with powers to statutorily recognize the board and management of BEDC as an operator in the Nigerian electricity supply industry. The Commission stated that the BEDC was a jointly owned venture with VGO Power Limited, holding with an equity of 60% and 40% being held by BPE on behalf of the federal and state governments. Yes. I have another story here. NIT hard workers protest reinstatement of DG. Staff of Nigerian Institute of Trypanosomiasis Research with headquarters in Kaduna have held a peaceful protest against the reinstatement of the suspended overseeing Director General of the Institute, Dr. Felicia Chisoba Enwezo. Addressing the press shortly after the protest, the three unions of the Institute, the three union leaders of the Institute, Moyijo Uzaini, Musa Umar, and Rabiu Jubril, jointly kicked against her reinstatement by the overseeing Minister of Science. The trial noted that the suspended overseeing Director General was relieved of her duties based on the following: deliberate failure to carry out the decisions of the Governing Council on presidential directives of the Federal Republic of Nigeria, as well as recalling over 100 staff on training without due process, which violated the procurement processes. Let me see other stories here as well. Now, alleged 6.3 billion naira fraud, court discharges acquits Jan. Plateau State High Court, presided over by Justice Christy Dabu, has discharged and acquitted the former governor of Plateau State, Senator Jonah Jan, of all the 17 charges bordering on money laundering and misappropriation of funds to the tune of 6.3 billion naira. This is just as the former governor described his 4-year trial by the Economic and Financial Crimes Commission as mere persecution and not prosecution. The EFCC had alleged that Jan, who governed Plateau State between 2007 and 2015, alongside a former cashier in the office of the Secretary to the Plateau State government, Yusuf Pan, in March 2018 misappropriated the sum of 6.3 billion naira. Delivering judgment in the case on Friday, Justice Dabu said the EFCC could not prove its case of misappropriation, diversion, and public funds entrusted to the former governor of Plateau State. The court, however, quashed all the 17 count charges against the duo and held that the case instituted against them lacked merit and hereby dismissed and acquitted of all the charges. Now, Sharia police arrest 931 in Kano for street begging. The Kano State Isba Corps has arrested 931 street beggars in the last 2 weeks. The Commander General of the Corps, Sheikh Haruna Mohammed Sani Ibeshina, has said. Ibeshina on Friday, while parading the arrested beggars before newsmen at the Corps headquarters in Sharada, Kano, stated that one of the street dwellers, an old woman, was found with a large sum of money. According to him, 320 of the arrested beggars are males and 611 are females, while 3 of them tested positive to HIV/AIDS. A large number of the underage females are pregnant. He said that most of the beggars were arrested on major roads, under bridges, in markets, railway stations, and other strategic locations within the metropolitan and local government areas. Then, another story here. Fulani herders killed 6 in fresh attack on Benue community. No fewer than 6 persons were killed by suspected Fulani herders on Thursday in Umela village at the Mbawa ward of Guma local government area of Benue State. The suspected herders in their numbers invaded the community around 3 p.m. It was gathered. A native of the community who gave his name simply as Tondo said the attackers shot randomly at the people and sent the entire village into panic. He said the deceased were Adinde Idemba, Ofega Idemba, Alex Musega, Sula Lutuega, Velum Osesi, and another villager whose identity was yet to be ascertained. Now, there's another story here. The security conscious Sanwo-Olu's wife tells market leaders. Wife of Lagos State Governor Dr. Ibijoke Sanwo-Olu has called on market stakeholders in the state to be sensitive and responsive to security concerns as a way to avert attacks. Sanwo-Olu said it was essential for market men and women to reject unhygienic practices, including indiscriminate dumping of waste, blocking of drainages, and street trading. The governor's wife made the call on Friday at a one-day seminar themed Market Sanitation, Security and Safety for Market Leaders, organized by the Committee of Wives of Lagos State Officials. The seminar was also graced by the wife of the Deputy Governor, Mrs. Oluremi Amsat, Special Advisor to the Governor on Local Government and Community Affairs, Mr. Bolaji Kayode, among others. Dr. Sanwo-Olu is the chairperson of COWLSO, charged the market stakeholders to join efforts in intelligence gathering by channeling information to the appropriate quarters to ensure that potential security threats is named in the bud. Let's see another story here. 49,000 persons in Northeast to benefit from FAO Japan intervention on food security and nutrition. The Food and Agriculture Organization of the United Nations, with funding from the government of Japan, has expanded its response to revitalize the worsening food insecurity and malnutrition situation of vulnerable population in Borno, Adamawa, and Yobe states in northeast Nigeria. This initiative aligns itself to the Sustainable Development Goals on food security and nutrition, which are also in line with the second pillar of the Yokohama Declaration of 2019, Deepening Sustainable and Resilient Society. Priority will therefore be placed on boosting local production of nutritious food among IDPs, host communities, and returnees. The initiative will also support the production and distribution of energy-saving stoves to reduce frequency of fetching firewood in bushes and associated risk to women and to the environment in general. Still on Saturday Tribune, I also have this story. Tinubu sympathizes with Ganduje over Kano building collapse. The presidential candidate of the All Progressives Congress, Senator Bola Tinubu, has commiserated with the Kano State Governor, Abdullahi Ganduje, over the lives lost when a three-story building collapsed at Kanti Quarry Market in the state. Tinubu, in a letter to Governor Ganduje, according to his media office, expressed sadness and sympathy over the unfortunate incident. He also wished the injured quick recovery. The former governor of Lagos State said the collapse of the three-story building under construction is disheartening. Those who lost their lives in that incident did not deserve to die in that manner. While praying that Almighty Allah grant repose of their souls, he commiserated with their families and relations and also urged them to take heart and accept the occurrence as the will of Allah. Now, let's see some stories again. Now, let's FSEC to train 110 unity schools on maintenance of lab equipment. Federal Science Equipment Center, Ijanikin, Lagos, under the Federal Ministry of Education, has said arrangements have been concluded to train 110 unity schools across the country on the repair and maintenance of science laboratory equipment. The center stated that the training was approved by the Permanent Secretary of the Ministry of Education, Andrew Adejo, and is termed Train the Trainer. It said the federal government was aiming at maintaining its existing science laboratory equipment and cutting costs on buying new ones. Okay. Let's see some sports story here before we round it up on the newspaper segment. Falcon test might Falcons test might against USA in friendly. Nigeria Super Falcons will file out today against the United States of America in a friendly bid for the Children's Mercy Park, Kansas City, US at 6 p.m. Nigerian time. In its first leg of the two friendly matches with one of the women's football powerhouses, as the last friendly is scheduled to take place at the Audi Field in Washington, D.C. on Tuesday. And both countries are using the friendlies as part of build-up to the 2023 FIFA Women's World Cup finals scheduled for Australia and New Zealand. USA remained the most successful team in the FIFA Women's World Cup, having won 4 of the 8 editions they competed for so far. The current 9-time African champions Nigeria finished 4th at the just ended 2022 Women's African Cup of Nations and held in Morocco to qualify for the 2023 World Cup. Today's game is expected to see the progression of 4 of the players who were part of the Falconers to the just ended FIFA Women's Under-20 World Cup held in Costa Rica. Nigeria coach Randy Wardrum named defenders Oluwatosin Dimehin and Rafiat Imoran, as well as midfielders Esther Oyeniside and Deborah Abiodun, all members of the Under-20 squad for the friendlies against the mighty American team, a development many stakeholders hailed as one of the steps to reinvigorate the senior national team amid criticism that the Super Falcons need to do away with aging players. The Super Falcons still boast Atletico Madrid star Rashida Tajibade to prepare the team, coupled with the superb conditioning of Osinachi Ohale, Tony Payne, and Uche Nakano, among others, to give the Americans a run for their money. Then another sports story here. NGF wants to rejuvenate golf in Nigeria. That is coming from Ranshewe. President of Nigeria Golf Federation, Otunba Olusegun Ranshewe, has promised a new direction for golf in the country. Ranshewe made this known at the 3-day first Nigerian Golf Federation Summit in Abuja, as he described the summit as a new beginning for the game in the country. According to Ranshewe, the purpose of the summit was to create an opportunity for golfers in the country to network and acquaint themselves with the process of the World Handicap System. The World Handicap System is a universal ranking software which could be accessed by players globally. And that is how far we'll be able to go on our newspaper segment of the Saturday Morning Treats. We'll be right back.
Of importance, every day a blessing I see in abundance. And me, I no go take chance. My enemies, they don't answer one chance. Yeah, Muti Ramoto, one pay a photo, Givenchy, oh I be so Versace. Yeah, Muti Ramoto, one pay a photo, Givenchy, oh I be so Versace. Na tó lówó. Mo ti ra mọ́tò, wọ́n fẹ́ ya fọ́tò, Givenchy, mo wá gbé sórí Versace. Mo ti ra mọ́tò, wọ́n fẹ́ ya fọ́tò, Givenchy, mo wá gbé sórí Versace. Jésù jọ, má jẹ́ kán rí mi tán, káyé mi ní ọ̀kan. Jésù jọ, jẹ́ kí n jó ìjó ayọ̀, ẹ bá mi jó ìjó ayọ̀. Jẹ́ kí n jó ìjó ayọ̀, ẹ bá mi ṣe ìjó ayọ̀. Jẹ́ kí n jó ìjó ayọ̀, ẹ bá mi jó ìjó ayọ̀. Ó ti ṣe ìjó ayọ̀, ẹ bá mi jó ìjó ayọ̀.
Person papa no go hustle, person mama no go sweat. Before they buy that muscle, before they buy that Benz. Wọ́n ní ìsáṣẹ́ mú sáṣẹ́ gangan, gbàṣẹ́ mú gbàṣẹ́ gangan. Jẹ́wọ́ ta sáṣẹ́ gangan, bí mo bá mú ní ìlàjẹ́ gangan. Àdókìá, màmá mi gan dókìá, bàbá mi gan dókìá. Music phone on Nokia, now we run the area. Everybody dey wa, sọ fún wọn kọ́ kórìí wa.
Jésù jọ, má jẹ́ kán rí mi tán, káyé mi ní ọ̀kan. Jésù jọ, jẹ́ kí n jó ìjó ayọ̀, ẹ bá mi jó ìjó ayọ̀. Jẹ́ kí n jó ìjó ayọ̀, ẹ bá mi ṣe ìjó ayọ̀. Jẹ́ kí n jó ìjó ayọ̀, ẹ bá mi jó ìjó ayọ̀. Ó ti ṣe ìjó ayọ̀, ẹ bá mi jó ìjó ayọ̀. Mo fẹ́ lówó bí Adénúgà, mo fẹ́ lówó bí Ọ̀tẹ́dọ́lá, mo fẹ́ lówó bí Tinubu, Àtíkù, Rájí, Fáṣọlá, mo fẹ́ lówó bí Ọbásanjọ́.
Igi arúwé, tẹ̀ní bẹ́ẹ̀kì lójú, igi tèmi ti rúwé. Tẹ̀ní bẹ́ẹ̀kì lójú, igi arúwé, tẹ̀ní bẹ́ẹ̀kì lójú, igi tèmi ti rúwé. Orí burúkú back to sender. Àìrọ́mọ bí back to sender. Àìrówó ná back to sender. Àìníṣẹ́ lọ́wọ́ back to sender.
Yes, you are welcome back on the program, and we are on the first guest segment of the program, and we have the topic: federal government borrowing 11 trillion naira while using 3.3 trillion naira on subsidy. My guest is already in the house with me. He will be speaking on the topic on the first guest segment of the program. My guest is no other person than Dr. Lawal Bakare. Dr. Lawal Bakare, you are welcome on the program.
Good morning. TREATON. Good morning, viewers.
Thank you very much. Federal government borrowing 11 trillion naira while using 3.3 trillion naira on subsidy. How do you see this? How do you reconcile it?
Well, to start with, I always like to put the discussion in this perspective. Once the economics, there will be a lot of issues here and there, arguments back and forth against or in support of borrowing. The economists, they will say it's not so much a big deal to borrow. Once you can sustain it, of course, when you have enough resources to actually back up the borrowing. In the same vein, when it is, of course, naturally, quite a number of governments all over the world to actually borrow. And the essence of borrowing is just to put in place a particular structure that will generate or engender a particular development, which in turn produce a particular level of developmental progress that will generate revenue to fund the future generation. So when you're borrowing actually for this present point, you're borrowing to put something in place that will actually produce another thing that will benefit the future generation. And when you are now borrowing just to satisfy the present situation, that is when the economists will call a concern. I mean, put a concern on it that so the borrowing is for consumption, not for infrastructural developments and all that. Those are issues within the economic perspective. But when you look at the political structure, politicians or the developmental experts, they will see borrowing many times has a number of reasons and has a number of justifications. When you discover that you have a developmental agenda funds and you look at the resources within your disposal, you're not able to meet up with that particular thing. Instead of leaving it until the future period when the cost of achieving such a developmental project will have also multiplied. So it's very essential that, of course, you go ahead to borrow now and meet up with that developmental project and look at the way of sustaining that project so that the project itself will fund the repayments of that particular loan that borrowed. However, the present scenario we find ourselves in this country is worrisome. Worrisome in the sense that a lot of our policies, so to say, have failed us. I don't know whether it's the implementers of the policies or actually those at the end of a period of making the policies. We seem not to be getting the enough benefits that we are supposed to have from all these expenditures and all that. So that is so worrisome. That is very pathetic that we need to caution ourselves for and look at the ways of restructuring our expenditure framework in such a way that we'll be able to have enough for the present and at the same time not jeopardizing the situation of the future generation.
Yeah. All right. Now, in your own view, do you think the rate the government is borrowing presently, do you think Nigeria have enough resources to be able to sustain the government?
Again, when you look at it, of course I'm coming from political science and public administration perspective, but this is an issue that is within the purview of economics. Many times when they want to justify borrowing, you say, oh, we have what we call debt to GDP ratio and debt to revenue ratio. And that is when you're discussing the framework for borrowing. Presently, as we have in Nigeria, well, the data released recently by the DA, we discovered that the debt to GDP ratio of Nigeria is actually not bad, totally bad position. Because the World Bank has actually put a threshold of 77% ratio there. But what we have presently in this country is a kind of 20-something percent. When you look at debt to GDP ratio. However, in many instances, we don't usually put our concentration on debt to GDP ratio. Why? Because there are a lot of economic factors that influence GDP. So don't let us deceive ourselves. GDP of 7 trillion we have today may not actually translate to economic progress or prosperity for the people, if not worldwide. So the main concern has been shifted to debt to revenue ratio, and that is where there's a great problem. The report of the first quarter released by the Ministry of Finance said that Nigeria has spent over 1.9 trillion on servicing loan alone, whereas our revenue for that period is a bit lower than that particular amount. And that's where there is a problem. Meaning that our debt to revenue ratio is actually in a very bad position. Forgetting about or putting aside the issue of debt to GDP ratio, we need to look at something that there is a need to shift our focus, our attention to something we need to set this particular load, which is revenue. So, coming back to your question, it is worrisome because of the fact that Nigeria is not able to generate enough revenue that puts us on a good position that will make that will justify the borrowing. What the government is actually concentrating on is revenue to GDP, debt to GDP issue, which, of course, I said earlier, is not sustainable. Considering the fact that almost all we consume in this country are imported. So naturally we are not, so our concentration, our focus should rather shift from debt to GDP issue to debt to revenue issue. And when we do that, we're able to x-ray our problem that, hey, we're in serious mess if this should continue. And that was the first quarter report. So the other report, the other statement by the Minister of Finance says that there are a lot of problems with regards to our revenue generating capacity. We are not able to generate as it is expected. So meaning that we have financial indiscipline with regards to the way we manage our revenue. If we are able to generate enough revenue, the issue of borrowing wouldn't have been a major concern. We are able to generate enough revenue to sustain or to set the loan we are taking. So that's just the main concern.
Now, let me ask you, with the rate of borrowing, if the situation continues this way, what manner of future do you foresee for the country?
There is a danger. And I don't expect such to continue. Of course, there are a lot of concern, a lot of argument, a lot of statements from all experts, policymakers, policy analysts, and all that, urging the federal government to put a pause to the continuous borrowing. Why? Because it has been established that the present condition we find ourselves shows that our revenue generating capacity is not enough to actually sustain the borrowing. So if we should continue in that way, it's like we are shifting the burden, we're shifting the problem onto the next generation. This government is actually going to win out. The new government will be formed. Then, when the revenue is not there, it's also we look at way of boosting its own capacity to go into developmental projects. It may actually also venture into borrowing. So that is why the present government needs to do us good by putting a stop to this particular borrowing. Until we are able to put in place all the necessary strategies that will ensure that all our revenue leakages are blocked and all efforts are in place to generate or to boost our revenue capacity. That's just the main problem. And we have every capacity, all the resources to do that. Only that people at the helm of affairs and actually possibly they are not incapacitated or they are actually not doing or using the power as expected. There is gross financial indiscipline. There have been various reports that the agencies are not emitting the revenue as expected. Of course, there was a recent the House of Assembly public debate or public outing that where they invited House of Rep, where they invited one of the agencies, and the agency was actually show up. Just to come and show us, just come and tell us how far did they come? How far they've been able to generate revenue? So very few agencies in this country actually meet up to the expectation. But a lot of other ones that are not actually remitting the revenue as expected. And that's the problem. So if this government should continue borrowing without actually taking care of where the revenue to service the loan is coming from, then we will be translating or be transferring the present body onto the next situation. And that will be so.
Some agencies are not remitting, but they are generating, but they are not remitting as expected. Now, let's move on to the subsidy aspect of the topic. 3.3 trillion naira subsidy. Are you not worried that this humongous amount being used on subsidy?
Because it is worrisome. When we say subsidy, literally, when we say subsidy from our perspective, we mean the approach through which governments intervene in the economy to put off the pressure on the price of goods and services coming to the people, means to alleviate the suffering of the people, and so that the amount they are going to be paying will be lesser compared to what they ordinarily be paying, and while the government will be making up to the balance. Subsidy is not only in petroleum payments, the subsidy in education, the subsidy in health, the subsidy across, including recently we just got the information that the subsidy on electricity has been removed. Quite a number of people are not even aware of the fact that there was subsidy on electricity until the reports came out that there was actually a subsidy, and the government has actually removed that particular subsidy. But the major concern, the major issue we normally put our concern over is the subsidy on fuel, on petroleum. I think the major problem we have is, number one, identify exactly the total volume of fuel consumption. Up to this present moment, we still don't have an agreed amount of fuel consumption of this particular. There was a particular figure released by one agency saying that this is the particular total consumption of petroleum by Nigeria. And another agency has come up to debunk that particular, and under the same comment, meaning that we don't actually know the volume of oil they consume in this country. And I think that is the major issue that makes that particular subsidy to go, increase to that level. And to be candid, even though we don't want to listen to that, we don't want to, and the fact that the government has not actually portrayed itself in a situation to allow people to accept the government to go in line with that particular program, step. The right step will have been to remove the subsidy totally. And this present government has enough capacity to do that. This is the government that has enjoyed huge loyalty of the people right from the onset. The previous governments did not enjoy up to the economy. But I remember the previous governments when they wanted to remove the subsidy then. Even not totally, just to remove this partially. There was a lot of all over the country. For that same percentage that was removed then, higher percentage of it has been removed by this present government, and there has not been a lot of agitation, just as we experienced in that particular. Meaning that this government still enjoys the reality of the populace. The only thing the government needs to do is to come out and let us know and have a huge, compensation, engagement with the public. This is the reason we need to remove this. And once this is removed, this is what we intend to provide to serve as so-called to the problem, the solving of the people. I remember the previous government, when it removes the subsidy, of course we quite saw a number of things that were put in place. We have subsidy, a lot of, even we have programs, we have transportation, we have health. We could see the release of those things in those particular areas. And that is what this president also needs to do. There is no shortcuts. There is no way of the right thing for us now is to remove that particular, to do away totally with that particular subsidy. But the government that will do that, first of all, let us know that it's transparent enough, it's accountable to us, and it's sincere to us. And again, it's putting a number of strategies in place that people will see. The idea of constructing roads, building bridges, of course, it's right, it's good, but people want to see something that will benefit their immediate needs. They want to see how such will translate to their improvement in welfareism, reduction in the cost of living, reduction in a lot of things that they are actually focusing, expending their money on. So if governments can come up with those particular strategies that will actually that will elevate the sovereign of the people, and that will reduce the fear of the people. Because the problem is people are having the fear that once this is removed, of course it will translate to an increase in transport fare, it will translate to an increase in the price of goods and services. That among the fears that people are actually having. That once this, of course, the price has the PMS price has been increased to 175 now, at least. A number of stations are selling it for 180, 190, and all that. And we've seen the effect on the increase in the price of transport fare, the price of commodities, the price of a lot of things have actually gone up. Meaning that people are also looking at it that, once it is removed totally, there's tendency that all the price will also go up. Then where is the government coming from? And that is the main issue. So if the prices are going up on this direction, and the government is coming up in another direction, that's okay, this particular transport fare, we're producing or we're procuring all these vehicles, and we're trying to do it in this way. Okay, this particular health sector, we're trying to do it in this way that everybody that goes to the hospital no need to pay before they access the health facilities. Everybody that goes to the houses on strike now, we don't know what will actually come out of it. Whether on the assumption of there will be increase in the price, the school fees and all that. We don't actually, people are paying a lot, paying high fees to actually benefit. So that is what the government, the people actually afraid of. That once this is removed, there is tendency that it will translate to high cost of living, which is actually not very good for us as at this present moment.
All right, Dr. Bakari, in your earlier submission, you seem to have created awareness for those who don't know about the subsidy on other areas apart from petrol. Now, you also said that that of electricity is being removed.
It was said that it has been removed.
Has been removed, and there were no fees and cries. Why is that of petrol always attract outrage from members
yes,
of the public?
Yes, it will attract because petrol has a multiplying effect. Unlike electricity and some other things that you have alternative for.
Okay.
Petroleum, as we have it presently, still don't have alternative, except that you'll be using diesel. And that's another problem that we have. There is subsidy on petroleum, fuels. But we don't hear subsidy on diesel. The price of diesel has actually gone up, which has translated to increase in the cost of production for a period of time. We're not looking at that particular one. But coming to your question, the reason is this. Petroleum has multiplying effects. Everybody depends solely. For us, people going to work and they don't have a vehicle, we actually bought vehicles. People going to school, the markets the sellers, the producers and all that, we actually go to their own. And it's what they expend on this particular transport fare that will be added to the cost of the production, and that will translate to eventual costs for the product. So that is actually why naturally all sectors of the economy depend majorly on it. Of course, if there is increase in the price of oil, everybody tends to feel it. Why? Because we so much have dependency on it, and there is no total alternative from that particular aspect as at this present moment. And that is what is actually generating a lot of outcry as we have it.
Okay. Now, recently, one a top government official in this country, one is precisely the Australia General of Customs, America, said that subsidy, the subsidy on petrol is a fraud. Do you also subscribe to this comment by that top official of the government?
Incidentally, he's not the first person that will say that. Because our present government has equally said that before he came on power. He said it before he got the position.
Okay,
before he became the president. Yes, actually. He actually said it on TV that subsidy is actually fraud. And people believed him because he has been there before. It was one time the Minister of Petroleum. So if something of such is coming out from him, people believed in that. So this person, and it's not the only person that will say that. There was also another person, oil expert, who has actually made that particular position in the past. So now comparing the statement of the, I'm coming back to the question. Comparing to the statements of our president, when he has not become a president, then comparing his statement with the present situation, one would wonder what has changed. Do we say because he has not got the power, that was why he was saying that, or perhaps he was actually enticing people with that particular statement? So we don't know what has actually changed, because the subsidy has actually paid right from the inception of this particular government has actually outweighed what other previous governments have paid. So that is just on their side. Coming to the statements credited to the Controller General. Well, he is in government. So perhaps the fraud we'll be talking about is the way we are diverting the bulk of petrol, petroleum that we are supposed to be using in this country to other neighboring countries. Meaning that we are actually subsidizing for other countries. There are a lot of, that's just the way I can understand the statement, because he's the Controller General of the so he knows what comes in and what goes out. By implication, maybe talking about the fact that a lot of females that are supposed to be for this particular country find their way in other neighboring countries, meaning that we are paying for the subsidy that we are supposed, and that goes back to what I said earlier, that up to this present moment we still don't have a common figure of the total fuel consumption in this particular country. So, meaning that the bulk of that particular petroleum we are subsidizing find its way in other neighboring countries. So what we're supposed to be using here find its way in other neighboring countries. And that is a very huge fraud and a crime to the public. Possibly that is what you'll be referring to. Or else, if you come out to tell us, particularly that, this amount that is being paid is not being paid to the right channel. It's being paid to some personalities that are not actually doing what is required. Remember, there was sometimes in the past a number of petroleum marketers were actually accused of something of such, and were actually arraigned before the court of law. So maybe that is what he's actually talking about, unless he come out to tell us. But the statement of that nature coming from such a person requires that we interrogate further. We require the media to interrogate further. So let us know, so that they will not put the Nigerian populace in darkness. Let us know what he actually talking about by saying the subsidy is a fraud. He's actually talking about paying it to people who are actually taking our oil to other countries, or paying it to those people that are not actually bringing the oil as expected, or in what perspective? I think that's what we need to.
Ọ̀mọ̀wé làwọn àkàkàrẹ̀ ẹ jẹ́ ká wo ohun tí à ń gbé yẹ̀wò lórí ètò ìlú, ẹ jẹ́ ká wò ó díẹ̀ ní èdè abínibí wa ní èdè Yorùbá. Ọ̀rọ̀ lórí ẹ̀yáwó tí orílẹ̀-èdè tíjọba orílẹ̀-èdè kan ń já lójoojúmọ́ tó sì ti tó bí tírílíọ̀nù bíi 11 tó dẹ̀ jẹ́ pé tírílíọ̀nù 3 ó lé la fi ń san owó lórí owó tó ń pè ní owó ìrànwọ́ lórí epo. Wọ́n á ń béèrè báyìí pé ṣé owó táwọn ń yá yìí táwọn ojoojúmọ́ yá yìí ṣé kò ní di wàhálà tó bá dọjọ́ wájú?
Ẹ ṣeun àkọ́kọ́ gẹ́gẹ́ bí mo ṣe sọ lákọ̀ọ́kọ́, ẹ̀yáwó tàbá wò káyáwó gangan kọ́ ni wàhálà. Ntí ó jẹ́ wàhálà ni pé kí la yáwó fún àti pé báwo láti san owó tá a yá. Lọ́pọ̀lọpọ̀ ọgbà ló jẹ́ pé nta máa fẹ́ rà àbí tá a máa fẹ́ ṣe nígbà míì látàrí pé àní tó tó lọ́wọ́ láti ṣe nǹkan náà yóò bùkátà sí pé àyàwó. Àná orílẹ̀-èdè wa kọ́lẹ̀ ní orílẹ̀-èdè àkọ́jọ́ ọ̀pọ̀ yàwó. Orílẹ̀-èdè lágbàáyé náà tọ́jọ́ pé ó gòkè láì jẹ́ pé ó yàwó. Amẹ́ríkà ní gbogbo àwọn nǹkan orílẹ̀-èdè ní ìtọ́jú pé wọ́n ti làmìlà kárí ní. Ṣùgbọ́n tí ó jẹ́ wàhálà níbẹ̀ ní kí ni a fi owó náà ṣe. Tí a fi ń ṣe ń tọ́jú pé yóò mú dàgbàsókè wá ní, tó fi jẹ́ pé kò ní dá wàhálà sí àwọn tó ń bọ̀ lẹ́yìn wa lọ́rùn, àbí àna owó náà láti fi ṣe àwọn tó wà ní ìsìn láǹfààní níta ìtẹ́wọ́ ọ̀jẹ̀ tí wọ́n mú. Tó bá yẹ pé lórí tí wọ́n ọ̀jẹ̀ tí wọ́n mú là ń jáwó náà sí, àsanwó kíní, àsanwó òṣìṣẹ́, àsanwó tó bá yẹ pé lórí ìyún wàhálà ó wà bẹ́ẹ̀. Ìgbà tó bá yẹ pé lórí ní tí yóò mú ìdàgbàsókè wá, tó sì jẹ́ pé fúnra ara ń tá a fẹ́ ṣe gangan yóò lè san owó tá a fẹ́ yà wọ́n. So lọ́dọ̀ àwọn oní ìmọ̀ nípa ìṣúná wọ́n sọ yìí pé ìyẹn gangan kọ́ ni problem, ìyẹn gangan kọ́ ni wàhálà. Ṣùgbọ́n lọ́pọ̀lọpọ̀ gbà pẹ̀lú tó ń ṣẹlẹ̀ lórílẹ̀-èdè wa Nàìjíríà lónìí ó bùkátà sí àpérò, ó sì bùkátà sí àdúgbòsọ torí ẹ̀yàwó lójoojúmọ́ ẹ̀yàwó ó ti ń ga ju agbára wa sí lọ. Ìyẹn gangan ni tó jẹ́ wàhálà. Ètí wọ́n sì máa ń fi kó wa lójú ní pé ẹ̀yàwó tá a bá wò níbàámu pẹ̀lú àpẹẹrẹ agbára tí tá à ń ṣe tá a mọ̀ sí GDP ìpè ó sì wà ní ìbámu ó sì mọ́mọ́ ọ̀bà ìṣẹ́sà máa ń sọ fún wa. Ṣùgbọ́n ọ̀pọ̀lọpọ̀ ọgbà àwọn ìjọba wo kí ń wo wípé káwò pẹ̀lú ẹ̀yàwó àti ìtàkìsàn àyín gangan ni ó gba àjókòó sọ ó sì gba ìró torí pé bó ṣe wà lónìí pẹ̀lú tí àwọn ọ̀rọ̀ tó ń jáde látẹnu àwọn tó abẹnugan agencies wa ó ń túmọ̀ sí pé Nàìjíríà bá a ṣe wáyé o ní ìkápá àbí ká sọ wípé ìkápá láti san owó tí à ń yá ó kù díẹ̀ ká tó ó kiri ibi tí wàhálà wà tábà ń yáwó téyàn ò ní agbára tàbí tó yẹ pé agbára tí ò fi sanwó padà ó kéré níbàámu sí owó tó ń yá revenue àti owó tó ń yá revenue owó tó ń wọlé ó kéré sí owó tó ń yá gbèsè tó yá that is ibi tí wàhálà ti dé ibi tó jẹ́ kí ká fẹ̀sọ̀ sí.
Tàbá wa wò báyìí tàbá wa bẹ̀rẹ̀ sí yáwó tán tí ò sì sí agbára láti san owó ó lọ ìtọ́jú ọwájú orílẹ̀-èdè àtàwọn ọmọ orílẹ̀-èdè Nàìjíríà ó lọ sí òkúta.
Ọjọ́ iwájú yóò lè tó bá jẹ́ pé àwọn ìjọba wa wọ́n sì tẹ̀síwájú láti yáwó bàtẹ́ torí pé ìtumọ̀ rẹ̀ ní pé à ń ti wàhálà sí àwọn unborn children àwọn ọmọ wa àwọn generation àwọn èèyàn tó ń bọ̀ lọ́jọ́ ọ̀la àwọn ẹni à ń ti wàhálà sí ló bá àwọn ẹni ó di wàhálà láti san àǹtá sì bẹ̀rẹ̀ tá a bá tẹ̀síwájú láti máa yáwó yìí láì mójútó gbogbo ibi tí owó ti ń wọlé láti san owó tá à ń yá ní tí ó ṣẹlẹ̀ ní pé Ọlọ́run má jẹ́ kí a wà ní oko ẹrú gbèsè kárántí pé lákọ̀ọ́kọ́ nínú ìjọba àkọ́kọ́ ní ìpele sáà tí a wà yìí Ọlọ́run bá wa ṣe a rí ẹforí gbèsè jù wá lẹ́yìn ọ̀pọ̀lọpọ̀ àwọn tí wọ́n ṣe lọ́kàn tí wọ́n ṣe rí ọjà ẹ̀sẹ̀ lé káwá mọ́tò padà ṣẹ̀ṣẹ̀ àárọ̀ torí tí ìjọba bá ń tẹ̀síwájú láti máa yá owó yìí ó dàbí ìgbà pé àwọn olùkọ́ àti padà ṣẹ̀ṣẹ̀ àárọ̀ tòun tẹ́lẹ̀ wò ní pé ó yẹ kí ìjọba ó mójútó ọ̀nà tó ti ń wọlé sí Nàìjíríà pọ̀ ṣùgbọ́n àìmójútó látàrí wípé nítorí kó wọlé láwọn agbègbè kọ̀ọ̀kan láwọn sẹ́tọ̀ kọ̀ọ̀kan wọlé bó ti tó àti bó ti yẹ nínú gángan ní wàhálà and tí ó mú yàn lẹ́nu ni pé ìjọba tó wà lóde lónìí orí tí a gbà wọlé orí tí gbogbo wa tó jẹ́ pé àgbà tí wọ́n sọ ń gbà náà ní pé ọ̀rọ̀ corruption àjẹbánu tó ti wà ló ṣe kí ni yóò dùn gbàgbé tó bá jẹ́ pé ìlú lè ṣe é ṣe ni ìgbàgbọ́ ti sí wàhálà ṣùgbọ́n ó dàbí ìgbà pé ọdún méje lé díẹ̀ tá a ti lò kò tí ì fẹ́ẹ̀ sí ìyàtọ̀ tó pọ̀ àbí ìgbà tó wáyé pé ìyàtọ̀ tó pọ̀ wà ní tó yẹ kówó ti wọlé sí Nàìjíríà pọ̀ tí o bá ń ṣe aláwọ̀ agencies kọ̀ọ̀kan àwọn iléeṣẹ́ ètò ìjọba kọ̀ọ̀kan tí àwọn House of Rep àwọn abẹnugan kékeré l'Àbújá tí wọ́n pè láti wá jíwèé bí wọ́n ṣe ṣe iṣẹ́ ìríjú wọn aláwọ̀ tí ò jáde nù aláwọ̀ tí ò wá tí ò lọ bẹ kí ló tí mo fi lé lọ súnmọ́ kọjá yí pé àwọn nǹkan kan ti wà tí wọ́n ti ṣe tó yẹ pé wọ́n gbé àtàwọn máa lọ bí o nígbà tí a bá ti àwọn sọ́tún tí àwọn sósì òótọ́ fara ẹ̀já rántí sọ́dún kan sọ́dún kààbọ̀ sí ìsìn àwọn Niger Delta tí a ń pè sórí kíníwà èmi ń darí ni pé ẹnìkan tó jága àgbàánu ó bá sì ṣe gbogbo tí wọ́n máa ń ṣe gbogbo ẹ̀ bá dàrú láti ìgbà náà sáà gbọ́n kankan mọ́ parẹ́ iyún gángan ni wàhálà iyún gángan ni ò jẹ́ kí ọ̀pọ̀lọpọ̀ àwọn èèyàn ó lè ní ìgbàgbọ́ kíkún lórí agbára ìjọba yìí àmì eléyìí ló sì ń kárí gbà pé ó ń ṣe tánà di owó tá à ń ya torí pé a ní ntó tó láti sanwó tá à ń ya so tàbá tẹ̀síwájú báyìí à ń sún ìyá wa ìyá tá à ti rí nìsín àti tó ń sún síwájú à ń sún sí ọjọ́ ọ̀la pẹ̀lú àwọn tí ó máa padà bọ̀ lẹ́yìn wa so àwọn yóò àwọn sọ pé àwọn ẹni yóò ṣe dáadáa tó gẹ́gẹ́ bá a ṣe ń sọ pé àwọn tó ṣáájú wọn ò ṣe dáadáa tó lónìí àwọn ẹni yóò máa sọ pé àwọn tó wà wọn ò ṣe dáadáa tó.
tí a bá wà wò wọ́n ní inú ọ̀rọ̀ tá à ń gbé yẹ̀wò pé tírílíọ̀nù 3 ó lé là ń san lórí owó ìrànwọ́ ètò nígbà tó sì ṣe pé à ń yáwó àtúntò fi san owó ìrànwọ́ pẹ̀lú owó gọbọi tá à ń tẹ̀ san lórí owó ìrànwọ́ ètò ìgbọ̀n ṣé ojú ìlẹ̀yìn tẹ̀ fi bò ní tún tiẹ̀ yẹ ká máa sanwó lórí pé owó kan wà tí ó ju owó orí ìrànwọ́ orí epo tó yẹ kó wà.
iṣẹ́ rí nínú ètò ẹ̀kọ́ nípa ìṣúná ọ̀nà tí ìjọba fi máa ń dá sí ìṣúná òkò ọ̀nà àkọ́kọ́ èmi táwọn èbò ní pè ní production approach ìjọba lè wò pé àwọn èèyàn bùkátà sí nǹkan yìí ṣùgbọ́n kò sí ẹja ń káwà gan kó o ṣe kí ni ká ṣe é so that yóò fi jẹ́ bí ìrànlọ́wọ́ fáwọn èèyàn nínú production approach ọ̀kan nínú rẹ̀ tí ò ṣe fọwọ́ lọ sẹ́yìn ní ta ní subsidy approach ìdáná by subsidy approach ni pé ìjọba ò lè wọn ò lè ṣe gbogbo ẹ̀ pátápátá wọn á ní pé ókè o ẹ̀yin aráàlú àwọn kọ̀ọ̀kan ẹ̀yin náà ṣe mi ṣùgbọ́n wọ́n á rí i pé táwọn aráàlú bá ṣe táwọn kọ̀ọ̀kan bá ṣe owó tí ó máa bá jáde pẹ̀lú owó yóò ga ju ìkápá tí àwọn èèyàn tí wọ́n lè rà lọ ọ̀dà ìṣúná ọ̀la ṣé náírà 3 lẹ́fẹ̀ẹ́ máa ta náírà 2 àwọn náírà kan yóò kú orí rẹ̀ àwọn gọ́ọ̀mẹ̀ntì ọmọ sí kíni tí ọmọ fi kọ́ ibi tí subsidy fún wa and gẹ́gẹ́ bá ti sọ subsidy kò ń ṣe lórí ọ̀rọ̀ owó epo nìkan ó wà lórí oríṣiríṣi nǹkan ó wà lórí health, ó wà lórí education, ó wà lórí ìlọ́tọ̀ àìmọye oríṣiríṣi nǹkan kódà iná mọ̀nàmọ́ná ọ̀pọ̀lọpọ̀ àwọn èèyàn gan ọ̀tí ẹ̀ mọ̀ pé subsidy wà lórí rẹ̀ ó wà lórí rẹ̀ náà torí pé láìpẹ́ ìyẹn àìsàn ìgbọ̀ pé ìjọba ti wá rí ó ti jáwọ́ bọ́wọ́ bọ́sẹ̀ lórí kíni owó ìrànlọ́wọ́ lórí
iná mọ̀nàmọ́ná.
so síwájú ìgbà náà ọ̀pọ̀lọpọ̀ àwọn èèyàn gan ọ̀tí ẹ̀ mọ̀ pé owó ìrànlọ́wọ́ wà lórí rẹ̀ ṣe rí ní tí yóò jẹ́ tó dáa jù lásìkò pẹ̀lú bá a ṣe rí torí téèyàn ò bá mọ̀ wá àsámọ̀ wá tó pẹ̀lú bá a ṣe rí pẹ̀lú dọ́kọ̀rọ̀ mi wá ṣe rí lónìí ìní pé kí ni ní tí yóò dáa jù ní pé kí subsidy ni ó lọ ṣùgbọ́n wàhálà tí ó wà bẹ́ẹ̀ ni pé ìjọba tí ó mú subsidy lọ bóò ló ṣe ní àkóyawọ́ sí bóò gangan ni àwọn èèyàn ṣe nígbàgbọ́ nínú rẹ̀ sí pé lóòótọ́ o ṣé kò ṣe wípé ó fẹ́ yọ́ǹbì láti jẹ́ pé kí ni wọ́n máa kó sápò lọ́nà ìbòmí èèyàn àkọ́kọ́ ẹ̀ẹ̀kejì ni pé kí gangan ni ìjọba gbélẹ̀ báyìí ní ètò tó jẹ́ pé yóò dín wàhálà àwọn èèyàn yóò dín so àrántí pé nínú ìjọba tó kọjá ní nígbà tí irú ọ̀rọ̀ báyìí tẹ̀lé wọn láwọn fẹ́ mú nípò tí ó sì sọ àwọn ètò kan láwọn ìwádìí wọ̀ kí wọn lọ. A rí lórí ètò ọkọ̀ ojú ọ̀run náà lọ́rọ̀ àwọn ọjọ́ pé àrí ojú ojú táwọn kẹ́ni náà tó wà wọ́n ní sí àti ẹ̀rí àrí ìpele yẹn kọ̀ọ̀kan lórí àwọn nǹkan kọ̀ọ̀kan báwọn ṣùgbọ́n kí ni ìjọba eléyìí kí ló ti gbélẹ̀ ètò owó ló ti ṣe tí ó fi jẹ́ káwọn èèyàn ó nígbàgbọ́ pé ó kiri torí tá a bá ti ẹ̀yọ́ báyìí yóò mú ìdẹ̀kùn dé báwọn èèyàn ní o gangan ni ó jẹ́ ìtàwọn èèyàn ń bẹ̀rù wọn kú tí ìjọ díẹ̀ jẹ́ wọ́n sọ báwọn ìjọ náà ayọ́ ó di 165 aláwọn yọ ó di 175 àbí 180 190 lóríṣiríṣi ibi tí so eléyìí ó túmọ̀ sí pé bí kíní ṣe wá ń lo òtẹ́ yìí ni owó orí táwọn èèyàn rà náà ń ga sí i làwọn èèyàn tó fi ń wò pé tá a bá ní kí wọ́n yọ pátápátá báyìí tó wọ̀n wá ní ṣe pé kí ni kò ní lo òkè sí kò ní wá gara ju táwọn èèyàn tí wọ́n lágbára ẹ̀ lọ láì lẹ́bí ìgbà pé ibi ìgangan ni wàhálà wà ìgangan ni wàhálà wà àti wípé gbogbo ni subsidy gangan lọ ìsọ̀rọ̀ ẹ̀kọ́ pé ọ̀gbọ́n ní subsidy tí tíjọba wa ń san ní ìsìn ló ń bá náà bòmí lọ lé up to this present moment títí di àsìkò yìí a sì tí ì ní fígọ̀ kan pàtó lérí pé iye já epo tí ọmọ nàìjíríà ń lò lójúmọ́ ni even lọ́dọ̀ àwọn ìjọba gan agency kan sọ pé báyìí agency kan sọ pé rárá báyìí so eléyìí sì ń túmọ̀ sí pé nǹkan kan wà ń di rẹ̀ torí tẹ́ bá ní 1.9 million litres ìyẹn tá à ń lò tá a wá multiply subsidy by that 1.9 million litres owó yẹn ọ̀gá ká wá compare rẹ̀ pẹ̀lú pé tá a bá ní 1 million litres ẹgbẹ́ 0.9 million litres tí ó ti yọ ọ́ lẹ̀ so ìyún ni ló jẹ́ wàhálà tí ò jẹ́ káwọn èèyàn gangan lè nígbàgbọ́ kíkún lórí pé ṣé subsidy ò wà gan-an ní àdúgbò sí àbí ṣé kí wọ́n yọ ní àdúgbò wọn yọ àárín gangan ní wàhálà.
tí a bá wò ọ̀nàwé làwọn bàbá a rí i pé ní nǹkan bíi àìjẹta sí àná ìjọ ọ̀rọ̀ kan fún ìwé ìròyìn pé rédíò ìjọ náà ló gbé kan ní adarí ẹ̀ka iléeṣẹ́ aṣọ́gbìnrin láńpẹ̀lẹ̀ kọ̀ǹtìlẹ̀ general onídàárí ó jẹ́ kó wà lámọ́lẹ̀ pé ní tá à ń pè ní owó àwọn orí epo ìgbìmọ̀ pé àparùtù ló wà ń bẹ̀ pé fúrọ́ọ̀bù ni pé kò sí ti jẹ́ sọ́bsidì ẹgbọ́n ojú ò lẹ́yìn tó dé ṣé owó àwọn orí epo só ti ẹ̀ wà lóòótọ́ àbáwọn kankan gọ sí kọ́nà kan lẹ́yìn kan ń fi báírò kọ̀wé lásán tí a ń pè sọ́bsidì kankan ojú ò lẹ́bi wọ̀.
gẹ́gẹ́ bí o ṣe sọ náà òun kọ́ ni ẹni àkọ́kọ́ ló sọ̀rọ̀ rẹ̀ kódà ìjọba wa ní ìsìn tó wà lórí ìjọba ní ìsìn kó tó di olórí orílẹ̀-èdè kó tó wọlé nígbà kó tó wọlé láàkọ́ ó ti sọ̀rọ̀ rẹ̀ kódà ó sọ èdè kó yọ sọ ó sọ lórí ètò mọ́màwọ̀ pé ìgbò tí ń jẹ́ sọ mọ̀dàrú ló ṣe kí ni
ló wà ń bẹ̀
àwọn èèyàn sì gbàgbọ́ lásìkò ìgbà náà torí pé a mọ̀ pé adarí lórí ètò ìmójútó epo gangan nígbà ológun so tí wọ́n rẹ̀ bá wà lè sọ bẹ́ẹ̀ lásìkò ó túmọ̀ sí pé ó mọ tí ń ṣẹlẹ̀ ó ti wà ń bẹ̀rẹ̀ ó mọ bó ṣe rí so ó sì ní information lọ́wọ́ kó tó máa sọ in tó ń sọ ṣùgbọ́n tí ó yà yẹn lẹ́nu pé látìgbà tó ní àti délẹ̀ láti bí ọdún méje kọjá díẹ̀ bóyá ọ̀rọ̀ ti yí bóyá tí wọ́n mọ̀ tẹ́lẹ̀ nígbà tí wọ́n ń sọ̀rọ̀ bóyá ní ẹ̀sẹ̀ wà mọ̀ tó jẹ́ pé owó subsidy tí wọ́n sọ pé kò sí nígbà náà tí wọ́n sọ pé subsidy ni nígbà náà àwọn náà tún wá tẹ̀síwájú lórí rẹ̀ débi pé kódà wọ́n tẹ̀ tún wá ń san ju ní táwọn ìjọba àkọ́kọ́ tí wọ́n ti ṣe kíni o tí wọ́n ń san lọ. so bẹ́ẹ̀ náà ni yóò jẹ́ tí irú ẹni báyìí kọ́lẹ́rà lé olùdarí àjọ aṣọ́bodè tó lọ́ọ́ bá sọ pé fraud ní subsidy ọ̀nà tẹ́mi yóò fi wò ó báyà tí kọlọ́dún general tí wọ́n fi sọ wílé ni pé ṣẹ̀wọ̀n báwọn mọ tó ń lọ tó ń wọlé àti tó ń jáde níbodè Nàìjíríà ó súnmọ́ bá jẹ́ pé àwọn ti mọ̀ pé bóyá subsidy tí ìjọba láwọn ń san yìí gan-an ọ̀pọ̀lọpọ̀ rẹ̀ ò dúró ọ̀pọ̀lọpọ̀ epo tó yẹ kí a máa lò ní kọ́ńtì yìí gan-an kò dúró sí orílẹ̀-èdè yìí wọ́n ń lọ sí kí ni o orílẹ̀-èdè bòmí gbogbo àwọn orílẹ̀-èdè tó súnmọ́ orílẹ̀-èdè Nàìjíríà so alásanwó subsidy lórí epo sì ní à ń gbé lọ sí kí ni o àwọn other countries àwọn orílẹ̀-èdè ní so wọ́n ń gbé lọ sí orílẹ̀-èdè ní láti tún lọ tà ní owó tó ga ń bẹ̀ so ní tí wọ́n sì ti gba owó ìrànlọ́wọ́ lórí rẹ̀ lórílẹ̀ so lẹ́tọ́ túnmọ̀ sí pé owó táwọn nìkan ń gbà ní ìsìn ọjọ́ náà méjì so èmi rò pé wọ́n rẹ̀ pé ọ̀nà ibi tí adarí aṣọ́bodè tí wọ́n lè fẹ́ máa bá lọ́nà torí pé àwọn mọ̀ nípa tó ń jáde àti tí ń wọlé so àmọ́ ní tó jẹ́ lítà jálẹ̀ epo gangan tá à ń lò ní kọ́ńtì yìí so ó súnmọ́ kọjá pé wọ́n ti fi kún púpọ̀ jù tó jẹ́ pé ló ń lọ sí tàbí kọjá pé wọ́n ti fi kún púpọ̀ jù débi pé ètò wà bẹ́ẹ̀ gan àwọn èèyàn kan ló ń kó sápò so ó súnmọ́ kọjá pé ibi tí olórí aṣọ́bodè tí wọ́n ń sọ̀rọ̀ lọ́nà torí pé àwọn náà wà náà gọ́ọ̀mẹ̀ntì ìjọba tó wà mí so tí wọ́n bá sọ̀rọ̀ rẹ̀ láì so ó bùkátà sí pé kí àwọn oníwèé ìròyìn àbí àwọn oníṣẹ́ ìròyìn kí wọ́n túbọ̀ béèrè sí pé ẹ wà nínú ìjọba yìí ọ̀nà wo ni owó yìí fi ń lọ tí fi ń kú o.
Okay.
All right.
Yeah, thank you, Dr. Lawa Bakari. Viewers at home, we have come to the end of this segment on the program today. Dr. Bakari has been my guest speaking to us on federal government borrowing 11 trillion naira while using 3.3 trillion naira on subsidy. Dr. Bakari, I appreciate your coming. Thank you very much.
We really appreciate you.
Yeah. Thank you. Yeah. Yes, you are welcome back. Saturday morning treat continues, and we are now on the commercial segment of the program. Stay tuned and watch with keen interest.
We at NAPO are committed to poverty eradication. We equally believe that the battle against poverty requires the effort of everyone.
Good morning, is Bridging the Gap today, and I'm Patience Nako Wana. Thank you so much for taking our time to watch this program. Bridging the Gap is produced by Lift Above Poverty organization LAPO, and LAPO is a health and women-focused organization. It's an NGO, a non-governmental organization. And on today's program, we are going to be talking about gender inequality and women's health. It's a known fact that we have made progress in the area of gender equality. However, women continue to be disadvantaged when you compare them to men. And globally, women are more confronted with the issue of poverty, violence, even mental health problems, and women have less access to food and education. And so the program this morning, we are going to be looking at how gender inequality has affected the health of women. And our guest on the program today is Dr. Bright Onyovo-Koko. Doctor, you're welcome to the program.
Thank you very much, President.
Dr. Bright is a representative of Clear Line Health Management Organization. And with him, we are going to be talking about the issue of gender and women. But before we do that, we are going to take the LAPO message. Please stay with us. Welcome back from Lapo Message. All right, Dr. Bright, let me start by asking what we mean by gender inequality or gender equality.
Simply put, when we look at gender, we refer to the men and the women. And of course, they are both humans. But when they are not being treated equally, it brings about what we call inequality. So gender inequality is like a social phenomenon wherein men are treated differently from women, and you give more priority attention to men compared to women, even when they have the same, or rather they are exposed to the same circumstance, whether maybe environment, opportunities, you still want to give the men preference compared to the women. And so it's a phenomenon that is all over the place in various parts, culture, climb, different places. You just see it just happening, giving preference to men. So that is what gender inequality is.
I also want us to look at the past and the present. How was women's health? That's women's health situation. What was it like in the past, and how is it today?
Well, if you look at the past and the present, one very key thing you could actually get from it is the fact that in the past, access to information wasn't there. Technological advancement wasn't there. But today, we have information all over the place. We have access to some of this information. And even in the past, you don't have data to even represent, oh, we have this number of women who are either getting this service or the other. But today, we have all those available. And of course, there has been a tremendous improvement from what we have in the past compared to what we have now. Like in the past, women may not see the need for them to rather go to the hospital. But today, it's a different ball game. They have that knowledge, they have that information. That does not mean that we've gotten to where we are supposed to be, because even in this access to information, interpreting the information is one thing. Utilization of the information is another thing. So those are also gaps that, yes, presently we are looking at, but comparing now and before, there has been a lot of progresses that have been made in terms of women's health, and even in terms of trying to give them some level of equality.
Right. How does gender inequality, how does it affect women's health?
Okay, you see, like I said, a general thing, a phenomenon that you actually see in most of the society is giving men, or the male, the masculine gender, more preference. And of course, if you also look, because there's a tendency to miss the, when you say sex and gender, they are like two different, they're like two different things. But when you look at the female, for example, sexual orientation, genetic makeup, and the hormones that she's exposed to have a role to play in our response to health and other things that will come. Yes, we could term that as being a biological issue. Let's take, for example, men don't get pregnant. Women get pregnant. So that's like a gender role that a woman can play. And of course, that pregnancy alone would have made her to be prone to various forms of health challenge. The same also goes for hormones. So when you look at that, because of that, it has placed some level of responsibility on that woman. And of course, if she has to give birth to a child, the frequency, the spacing, and some other things will also put some level of pressure on our system, and it will also affect our health. So when you look at the responsibility that has been placed on her, and if I want to say, let's look at our society, for example, there are a whole lot of things that are expected of a woman. A man and a woman is in the house. She has to cook. She has to go to the market. She has to do cleanup. She has to pay attention family to the children. When you put all these things together, they have a way of kind of affecting the woman. So you discover that our role as a woman is already playing a role, already having some effect on her. So when you now see the inequality in our society, it is says that now this woman is faced with this stress. Probably she needs to get attention, probably in a healthcare facility or some other things. What happens in that healthcare facility is not dictated by that woman. Now, still look at this case of inequality. The man may not understand is probably the way he's feeling. He may not be feeling okay. If he has the money, the moment he deems it fit to say he wants to go to the hospital, he goes. He gets access to healthcare. But what about the woman who may be economically disadvantaged? She may need to get money from the man. And for her to get money from the man, it means she needs to get some level of approval and permission to go. Even when she has her money, she still wants to. Because let's assume a woman who has maybe 1 or 2 children. She's been concerned about where she's going to put those children and be sure that they are safe for her to go and get what she needs to get. So when you see that, that is a form of inequality already in the society, and it's already placing the woman in a disadvantaged position. So if the woman is not feeling fine and she needs to go to the hospital, for example, the fact that she's not going to start thinking about either her children, what the man will eat, and about the home front, there will be some level of delay, and complications even can set in. So when you see this, the way society reason, the way society view things in social context or whatever, you discover that the inequality has placed the woman in a disadvantaged position. Let me also say one thing. You come out of the house, for example, you are a woman, and your husband has to go somewhere, you have to go somewhere. The society will be expecting you to take care of the children. What about the man? Are you getting it? The man can with ease say, okay, let me just go somewhere. You wouldn't leave as a woman because you need to take care of the children. But there's nothing wrong, or knee or whatever you call it, this take care of the children, let me get to so and so place. Those things are not obtainable in our society. And of course, information is key. If you look at it, the females, the level of information they get and even the utilization is restricted compared to the men. So when you put all those factors together, they pose a whole lot of inequality, and it kind of affects the health of the woman.
Okay, let's look at the issue of let's look at why women face these health inequalities.
Like I said earlier, decision making
It doesn't rest with the woman.
doesn't rest with the woman. And of course, starting from education, the woman even has been brainwashed. The woman has been brainwashed. I was somewhere some days ago, and a young girl was just talking, and she's still in the university, and the next thing she's saying, next year I will get married. Are you getting it? And I said, are you not going to round up your education and some other things? And of course, at that point, the moment she gets married, a whole lot of things are going to change. There are some things that probably she used to do before. She will not be able to do it. And if the marriage, now, of course, eventually, in marriage, you will say this time next year. It's a normal preaching you have in the church. So the next thing, after that marriage, the next thing is, let me start having children. And when she starts having children, let me start caring for these children. You can see how that part has changed. But to like say, okay, let me empower myself, maybe with the right information, with the right skill, or with the right training that will make me to be stable enough to face issues. They are not there. I was just like casting my mind back. You know, there was this thing we used to say, this is like many, many years ago, while we were still in primary school. You know, you have this week, WEEK. We form it as an acronym, like Women, Education, and in. You understand? Okay. You know, I'm just thinking back to say, if at that tender age, we already been kind of brainwashed into some of all these things. So you could see the female, rather the girl child, growing up, whatever thing that she may be aspiring to be, you just have that feeling that she needs to be subjected to a man. So that's on the part of information. What about control over your body? You are a woman, you get married, or even, do you even have rights over your own body? We call it body autonomy. Can the woman determine the number of children she's going to have? Can the woman determine the spacing that she's going to give to her children? Can the woman determine the time at which she's going to get pregnant? These are challenges that we really don't get in our society.
Let's take a break here while we bring in the faces of Lapo. Please stay with us.
My name is Mrs. Monica Omuku. I trade in Igudu market. I sell shoes, bags, and other things. I started with Lapo years back, close to 20 years now. I've been with Lapo. I've benefited from them. I use it to train my children, land, and the rest. Then I have so benefited in several ways. Not only the money, I acquire properties too. It is a wrong notion. Like I tell I'm a union leader, like I tell them, if you borrow this money, use and well. If you not put them for business, now you say they talk, say Lape money no good. Lape money good. If you calculate where you go use them well. Me, I never regret any deal. And as many ways they take them, one, use them well. Pray well, put them for the business. Not they can go pay house rent. Not they can go buy clothes. Not they can solve problem. If you use them well, you go benefit well. So I never regret one day of trading with them. In fact, I'm not there any other place apart from Lapo. I like the interest rates. I like the month. I like the way they treat me. I like the way, in fact, everything about them I like. If you do well, nobody will react. So I like the way they're with them. I'm so happy with them. People should come and benefit from it because they have many amenities. In fact, Lapo is there for the poor, and that will build you up so that you can become something in the future. Any kind of business where you do, if you take the money, put on where you go benefit. They open hand for any kind of business and society. Anytime where I want to collect money, I go for training. And they make me, they manage my business well. So I know they get price. Even when I go stuff, I can't even pray for the BM because the training, with the benefit, if my money will not go fit pay. But as we they go there, so we they learn many things every day. Each training when I go, and the benefits. So the teacher say, if you collect the money, not put them for another side. Get manner of approach to your customers. Always stay in your business. Always come on time and open your and make you dey save. No collect above your capacity and so many other things that I've enjoyed. In fact, I've benefited from Lapo's trade. It has been helping me in my business and my home. Lapo, God bless you, enhance you, give you more wisdom, guide and protect you. They should continue. God will bless them in Jesus' name.
Welcome back from Face of Lapo. Dr. Bright, in light of our discussion so far, I would like you to talk about the way forward. How do we enhance women's health? How do we enhance women's rights to health in light of our discussion so far?
Well, first and foremost, we must keep talking. Like we are talking about it now. People need to be informed. The women need to understand their rights, their responsibility, what is due them, and how they should go about it. Women need to understand the need for them to have the right information. Because if they don't have the right information, somebody can come and tell them anything, and they will believe anything. And in believing anything, anything can also happen to them. So women need to be empowered. Then when you look at system, there are systems that are discriminatory. We need to look at those systems and begin to address them. Whether they are cultural, whether they are social, we need to start looking at it and addressing them. Just yesterday, there was this uproar when there were some presentations at the National Assembly trying to give women some affirmative rights, some positions, and so many other things. At the end of the day, if you do a critical look at that, you see that some of those things that were mentioned there are actually discriminatory. In the sense that, like one particular one that struck me, if a man who is a foreigner comes to like marry a woman, I think he does not have rights to naturalize here. But if a woman comes, you give the woman that preference. So like you, for example, even if you go to your husband's place, you cannot either contest any political position in that place. You know, there were so many things around it that he's just trying to push the women, relegate them more to the background. But we need to strengthen the women. We need to get the women involved. It should be a conscious thing to look at them, deliberately drag them, deliberately pull them along. And those things that kind of scare women away, we should stop it. Give them a voice. Empowering women, not just with information, but economically. Because when they can actually pay their bills or pay whatever, yes, pay their bills, it will give them some level of confidence. You understand? And above all, we should do a check. What is the effect of relegating the woman in our society? You want a woman to take care of your house. You want a woman to take care of your children. Now you don't want that woman to be educated. You don't want that woman to be empowered. Can she do anything? She cannot. Yes, we have enlightened women in our society, but they are not enough. Women should be made to be interested in certain information that will help them. So by the time we do that, we begin to see that there's going to be a whole lot of transformation in our society. Who said women cannot hold political position? They should be allowed to hold those positions. After we have countries where women are presidents, they should be allowed, so that they can also speak from their own perspective, and by so doing, they will help others. some of the women who have held political positions, you see sometimes the way the men treat them discourages others. So we need to make a conscious effort to carry the women along, give them the right information, encourage them in any way we can. It will go a long way to help not only just the health of the woman, it will also even help the health of the man.
Thank you, Dr. Bright, for coming on the program today. We've been talking about gender inequality and women's health. We've looked at how gender inequality affects the health of women. And when we say equality, when we say equality, we are actually looking at a situation where men and women have equal rights, responsibilities, and opportunities. I also want to draw our attention to some of the gains of gender equality. For instance, equality between men and women. It prevents violence against women and girls. It's also essential for economic prosperity. And societies that value women and men as equal are safer and healthier. That's how we'll end the program for today. If you want to if you want to reach us, you can do that through text messages. You can also call the numbers on the screen or visit us at our office at number 18 Johnson UK.
Yes, viewers at home, I hope you have really enjoyed our program today. Although we are unable to bring you the second segment of our program, guest segment of our program, and that was because our guest to feature on the program was unavoidably absent. And the topic for discussion, COVID-19, required expert discussion. And because the guest, who is an expert in that field, was unavoidably absent, we were unable to bring you the second segment, the second guest segment of the program. But I do hope that you have enjoyed all other segments that we have brought to your delight this morning. So next Saturday is another edition where you join us again on the fresh edition of the program, which will surely be back and better. Until then, do stay tuned for our subsequent programs on OSBC TV. I remain yours, Kayode Adibayo. Bye-bye.
This one I'm asking a year with Johnny, it won't need newscasting. A year with Johnny, it won't need newscasting. I'ma get one support no like me. Odega fun, be height me. Odega fun, be height me. Adura no short you. I be pissing them off, don't touch you. I jing they beat Easter, Lagbara inshallah, sham.